Hello and welcome to the Human Side of Real Estate podcast. My name is Mark Toomey. I'm managing partner of Tata HRC, which is a boutique real estate headhunting company based in Warsaw, Poland. My guest today is Jason Sharman, who is currently European Director at Chancerygate, which is the UK's largest urban logistics developer and asset manager. Jason has spent 21 years living and working right here in Poland, and now, after 2 decades being immersed in Polish life, Jason has returned to the UK with his family. It's not every day you see somebody put down such deep roots and then make a move back. So I'm really keen to hear about Jason's experience. Jason, hi, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, Mark. Great to see you. Great to be here. Really looking forward to having a chat.
So it's been. We were saying earlier. I think it's been about 2 years since I've seen you last. It's about 2 years now since you've moved back. Is it?
Yeah, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
I moved about 3 years ago. And then my wife moved 2 years ago. They stayed. My wife and family stayed in Poland for a while, just so my kids could finish their school year.
Right.
Because it would have been a bit weird to have moved them halfway through the year.
Yeah. Jason and I used to be neighbours, and we used to go for long romantic walks in the forest and discuss the differences between John Locke and Friedrich Nietzsche.
Exactly. No, I mean, you've obviously continued the walking. I've just started again.
I have missed those walks, and I have missed you. So it's great.
Yeah, we lived in a very, very nice part of Warsaw. I did. And I do love the Polish countryside and the Polish forests, and it's one of the most beautiful things about the country. I think is the countryside.
No, I've been in Warsaw myself almost 20 years, like you, and during that time, we've seen a lot of. You and I both have seen a lot of expats come and go, and I think once somebody hits that 10-year mark, they're either here for the long haul or at least until the kids fly the nest.
Yeah.
So you, however, made a somewhat unusual decision, I suppose, in that context, to return to the UK after 2 decades.
Yeah.
So can you tell us how that came about?
I mean, I suppose the place to start with that is why were there so many expats that came out to Central Europe? I mean, in the early days, I don't know if people know that, but I trained as a surveyor in London with a company called Grimley JRE, which became GVA Grimley, which became Avison Young, and an opportunity came up for me to move to what was DTZ, and DTZ is now part of Cushman and Wakefield, to move to with DTZ to Ukraine, and the headhunter came to me and said, I've got an opportunity for you. It's very well paid, but it's a bit of an unusual place. It's in Kiev. And I met who was then the head of Central Europe, and he just sort of sold me this sort of exciting opportunity. So I went out and had a look. And Korvan Zadelhoff, who is the Z of DTZ, owned about 6 Baroque buildings in Kiev. And all the international companies had wanted to have him as the landlord because he was a Western landlord, and I also did work with McDonald's, and I did work with Ernst & Young and a few other companies. So I was there for a while, and then DG said, "Do you want to move to Prague?" And I moved to Prague, and there are a lot of young expats, sort of at associate level and young director level, in the Czech Republic and in Poland and in Hungary that had been recruited mainly out of the UK because of the sort of the fact that the UK market's a very established real estate market. The professional training you get from being a chartered surveyor.
What year what year did you move to Prague?
That would have been, so I moved to Kiev in 98, 99, and then and then Prague 99 to about 2001 or something like that. And then I moved to Poland in about 2001.
So I missed you because I moved to Prague. My first move was Dublin to Prague in 2001.
Right.
And I spent 4 years there. And then I moved to Warsaw. Oh, no, sorry. I had a stint in Finland in between. But so I just missed you there.
Yeah. So, I mean, getting to your question, I'm just trying to sort of paint a picture of why did expats move to Central Europe? Well, at that point in time, those countries I just mentioned, Poland, Czech, Hungary, and others were not part of the European Union. They were at that sort of stage where they were about to join the European Union, The real estate markets were not very established. They weren't very transparent. The legal side was still not fully clear as it is now in terms of title and other sort of legal aspects to real estate contracts. And just generally, the countries had been communist governments for many years, and they were in a transition period from going from an autocratic communist kind of society into aspiring to join the European Union. So naturally, business was still a little bit edgy, a little bit kind of Wild West or Wild East in this case, and so the idea was that sort of expats from mainly from the UK, but quite a lot of Dutch expats as well, and from other countries came over as country managers or as part of the senior leadership team. Even though you were relatively young, there was a sort of a man on the ground, as it were, to sort of communicate with head office. And that sometimes creates a little bit of conflict. So you had to manage that and make sure that people understood that you were not sort of a spy in the camp. You were on the side of the guys on the ground, but there was a communication and a learning and a training kind of aspect. Quite a lot of those expats went from associate to director to country manager very, very quickly. And if we went back to the sort of the 2000s, 2005, 2010, nearly all the companies had expats as managing directors.
Yeah.
And many of these guys are good friends of ours, and they've done incredibly well in their careers. And so a lot of the companies had expats. But now fast forward to where we are today, all I think I'm right in saying that all of the agencies, for example, not just agents, but developers, investors, banks, etc., in Poland, all pretty much run by Polish nationals. There are one or two expats I can think of in Czech Republic and Hungary. There's still one or two in senior leadership positions, but there are some very, very talented professionals in real estate that have grown up through the system, learned from spending time not only with the expats that came out into Central Europe, but also just in regional meetings and spending time with other professionals from within their international companies, and going on internal training courses. So I think today you've got some very capable and very qualified local nationals. And if you had an expat and a local national with all the same skill sets, except the local national is clearly going to speak better the language better and is going to be a person who's going to be able to do the same job fundamentally, then why would you employ the expat? So I think the role of the UK and the Dutch and the foreign and the Irish expats in Central Europe has changed now, and there's a less need for it. Is there still an argument that you should have people from different countries working across border. I think that's a slightly different thing. That's about cross fertilization of business, of knowledge sharing.
But I think as well, I think this really started when we had the first financial crash in 2009,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of it was kind of budgetary decisions as well,
Yeah.
and looking at expats who might have had expat packages in terms of schools, houses,
Yeah.
all that paid for. And then companies went, well, hang on a minute, we need to cut back on this. And I think that's when we saw the first wave of change. But also, I think since that time, I think a lot of companies, international companies have gone, well, we've got, excellent local guys, in management positions, and I think we're in Poland. I think it's only right that a local Polish guy should be the local managing director of the company. Yeah. And so there's been a bigger push towards that as well, to kind of make it more, their Polish operation more Polish, as part of the larger international group. And many of those guys have done, as we know, have done, fantastically well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think and all good to those individuals. Each person follows their own path. I mean, the point about what we were discussing before is that as you go up the ranks, you've got different avenues that you can follow. If you're an expat, having, as I did, I was the managing director of King Sturge, and then I was regional director in JLL. You get to a point where you've kind of run the company. So where do you go next? So option one is a kind of regional role. I kind of did a regional role at King Sturge. There are not so many regional roles really in Central Europe. There are a few kind of titles like head of Central Europe, but you're also head of one of the countries. It's more a kind of sort of teams sort of organising team regional meetings once or twice a year and reporting into board. You can do a kind of regional meeting. Some sort of have moved up maybe to a European level, board level, but that's there are very, very few roles like that, and they're suited to very specific types of sort of people, if you like. So that's one route you can follow. The second route is that you can go client side. So go and work for a fund, go and work for a developer. And even then, if you've spent a lot of your time working and running and working in an agency, and you've been managing director of an agency, you need to learn what the role of being a developer, to take on a senior development role and to get your spurs. But you could go and work on the client side. That's true. Or go and set up your own company. And I chose to set up my own company. And I ran a company called Sharman Church, which was basically a mini King Sturge. Yeah. Had a similar kind of work hard, play hard ethos, and we had a really great team doing investment agency. We didn't do valuations, but we did all the kind of leasing, tenant rep, industrial agency, capital markets, all that kind of thing, and that went really well. And then we tried to do a merger with Balmain. That was difficult for a number of reasons, from about I'm trying to remember when it was now, 2019, I think it was. We sort of extracted the core capital markets team from Balmain and set up Burlington Real Estate. Yeah. And Burlington Real Estate, what wasn't an agency, it was a asset manager. It was an investment acquisition advisor partner, and we also entered into development. So At that time, we had Cerberus and Arrow Capital as our investment partner, and we acquired a couple of industrial parks, which we were asset managing, and we acquired and secured, I think it was 4 sites around Poland, prepared all the development and management modelling, negotiate all the acquisition agreements, set up all the planning permission and building permit processes, and then boom, the Ukraine war started.
Right. Yeah.
And in essence, not only Cerberus, but all the investment funds at that moment in time just kind of put the brakes on. It wasn't a case of I strategically decided to move back to the UK. You sit back and you take stock. Where I am, where am I today, and what might be one of the better avenues to follow. And an opportunity came up, and a discussion with Chancerygate, where they were keen to plough on with their aspirations to be in Europe. And at that time, it was probably going to be more Western Europe, but they wanted to do multi-let development. They wanted to do potentially multi-let industrial park, value-add investment acquisitions. They wanted to grow the business into Europe. They knew that, or they understood that I had that kind of capability to go and break down barriers, and I think I've got pretty thick skin when it comes to problem solving and the challenges that one faces opening a new business in a new country.
And you're starting essentially your family is starting essentially a new life in the UK. So you're closing the chapter on Poland, and then having to reopen again in the UK, and as you said, we're not spring chickens anymore, and we don't just travel with a suitcase. It was a long drawn out process and tiring, and I think that my wife was an absolute angel, the way that she calmly dealt with it, and it wasn't easy for her, and leaving a lot of her friends, and moving to a new country and a lot of unknowns. It's when I moved at in my 20s, it's not the same as my wife moving. The business culture, like what do you think are the main differences between kind of UK real estate business culture and Polish business culture? Were there any kind of major differences there? Because you've been working in one kind of culture for so long, and then you kind of have to adapt yourself to.
Well, firstly, obviously, working in my own mother tongue made things a lot easier, because my wife will tell you that my Polish isn't very good. So you were quite generous earlier. There's probably a few people chuckling if they're watching this now, like when you said that your Polish is. I mean, I can obviously understand and pick up in a conversation, but business speak is not so easy. So I certainly found, going back and just people around you, walking around you, speaking English in the street, speaking English in meetings, speaking English. Having lived in a foreign country for a long time, you're speaking to people who are speaking to you in English, but not in their mother tongue, and so without realizing it, you're kind of, to a certain degree, if it's in English and you're speaking your mother tongue, and Polish or the Czech or the Hungarian person is speaking a foreign language, you're in control, or you're more in control of the conversation, and perhaps that's something that you don't necessarily appreciate. So when you're speaking in meetings in London, constantly and on a day-to-day basis with people who are very articulate, speak very good English, been speaking business English to English people all day long for all their career. The the movement and the structure of the conversations and the nuances and the manipulations maybe and whatever. You've got to be aware that you've got to be on point with that. One thing I've noticed, and it is the same in Poland as well, but one of the changes that I noticed from when I was in the UK before is that, and I see this with my son, there is a much healthier, less beery kind of culture with the younger generation. And in real estate, less deals are done, in a wine bar, in a pub. It's more kind of done through whatever sort of structures
Tennis
deals
courts.
are done now. If you're buying investments, you certainly have your contacts and your relationships. But that's good, and people are healthier. People are very professional. People are. I mean, the real estate market in the UK, you've got to realise that, the first chartered surveyors are more than 100 years old. Yeah. I remember when I was at King Sturge, Malcolm King saying, we're 250 years old. It's like, I wonder what the real estate market was back then. But the point is that, this idea of being professional, having a profession, the chartered surveyors profession, the Chartered Institute of Engineers, chartered architects, the chartered this, chartered that. The UK has always had this thing about having bodies that manage and control quality and who's a member and making sure that things are done correctly across all professions, right? It's a bit of a British English.
Well, it's
thing.
just kind of setting the standards and so it was something I wanted to get onto because and it kind of connects with this as well. So when I arrived here first, I remember I was like a fresh-faced 26-year-old, and some of the first people that I met were young British and Polish guys mostly, and working under your stewardship at King Sturge. So you'll remember a lot of these guys. So you've undoubtedly played a significant role in shaping the careers of many individuals over the years, both during your time at King Sturge and then later on with Sharman and with Burlington as well. Yeah. So knowing you as I do, in true Sharman fashion, you will probably deflect any credit for that. But looking back on some of the very successful people who started their careers with you, how does that make you feel? Is there a sense of pride and satisfaction in seeing their achievements and knowing that you helped a bit along the way there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't.
Now, don't deflect.
Yeah, it's like, oh, stop. Yeah. No, I mean, I suppose just inside yourself when you're deciding what sort of manager you are and what's important to you and how do you see the culture within your organization. You got to start off at that point, I think, and we all have strengths and weaknesses. But for me, having a team that is happy, well motivated, and desires to do well and desires to please their boss is a fundamental part of who I am and what I believe in. In order to achieve that, you've got to get respect. So you've got to work hard yourself. I think you have to recruit people who you feel a certain affinity to when you meet them, and you feel that you're going to work well with them, and that they're going to understand you, and you're going to understand them. And because two people don't work well together doesn't mean individually there's anything wrong with them. It's just finding a rapport. Humans are complex characters, and we're all there's a wide spectrum of different types of people, right? And building a team of individuals that work well together and want to work for their boss and want to aspire and want to grow is an important thing. And then on top of that, this sort of goes back to, it sort of loops back to a little bit back to the first part of our conversation, which is, as a young manager, I learned quite quickly that bringing in younger, like focusing on individuals that were bright. I mean, can I mention some names?
It's up to you. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I mean, when I was at JLL,
I might disagree with you whether or not they were right.
Yeah. But when I was at JLL, if your name gets mentioned, by the way, I'm expecting a beer. When I was at JLL, first time, so I'd moved from the Czech Republic. I joined JLL, and then I was there for a couple of years, and that's when Darren Battle was MD. And I joined I set up the agency department. And they had a few issues with one or two of the management before, so they had a refresh and brought in some new people. And my job was to come in and run the agency: office, industrial, tenant rep. It was kind of three teams, really. And because of the previous situation, one or two had left. And so I came in and I was like, right, it looks like we're starting from the beginning. So I said to Darren, he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to bring in a couple of young people. So I ran this kind of recruitment process. That was really in the early days, right? So the guys that were studying at the Warsaw School of Economics weren't so familiar with the real estate career. A lot of the guys, particularly guys who were studying economics at Warsaw School of Economics, wanted to go into banking.
Yeah.
So you were trying to recruit from these people.
Yeah.
And what happened was...
sorry, just one on that, because, you didn't have the luxury of plucking from, Nottingham,
no,
and Sheffield,
no,
and all these established, UK real estate universities or courses, because at that time in Warsaw, 20 years ago, there were, and I don't know what it's like today, but certainly that time, there were no dedicated real estate university courses. So you were having to pluck these guys from, as you said, maybe an economics background, and then teach them real estate, which in itself was probably quite challenging.
But I felt trying to take for example, an agent who'd been a bit of a resi wheeler dealer agent and was, had been doing it for 10 years, learned some bad practices. I just got frustrated with trying to convert that person into a professional. I rather sort of chose to back a younger but very bright person who didn't really, hadn't quite seen what the possibilities were in real estate. So I knew as I was feeding them information, they would be growing. There would be a bubble that would, that would grow. And I always knew that at a certain moment in time, that bubble would grow so big that they would go, hang on, I see now the bigger picture, right? I'm off, right? There was always that, but I embraced that, and I always supported people that went on to new jobs. So when I ran this process at JLL, what happened was that at the end, I think we shortlisted 4 candidates, if I remember correctly, and we asked them all to do a presentation, and we ended up recruiting Thomas Buras and Bartek Mierzwiak, and both like very good English. I think if I remember correctly, both studying economics. Both were at Warsaw School of Economics, I think. I think that was correct, and just both did great presentations and just both very professional and very kind of beyond their years in terms of others that I'd met, right? So I brought them in. One I think focused on office leasing. One on obviously went into industrial. Bartek went in, and he went on and became very high up in Logicor. And Thomas went on and became country manager of Savills, right? And both did incredibly well in their careers, and I'm really pleased for them, and I'm great. I don't speak to Bartek so much these days, but I stay in contact with Thomas, and he's a really good bloke.
And then you have obviously the likes of Michal Chidlinski, who worked with you at King Sturge, who's
so when I went to King Sturge, it's like, I don't know what it is, but I'm like the kind of come in and fix it guy, maybe. But no, so King Sturge had set up, had sort of focused primarily on valuations for a few years, and the partnership came and said, right, we'd like to sort of take this. We see the potential. Poland's joining the European Union very soon. We see the great potential here. So I came in, and really the company, I was left with like 2 people in the company, and the partners in London said, right, off you go. And I remember calling one partner in London saying, I've got an issue. 5 people resigned on my first day because they'd already planned to leave, right? Yeah. Because the previous country manager was valuation person, and they wanted to go and do valuations with them, and they went on and did very well, right? Absolutely no problem. But they didn't know me. They didn't know what was going on. So I came in and I was like, and I remember his name was Gary Yardley, who's now in the Czech Republic. I remember Gary saying to me, well, I don't know, mate, but we've employed you to fix everything. You tell us what you need. So I went about trying to find some good senior people who I could trust to get on with it. And you know, I'm not a micromanager, right? And sometimes you need to be, sometimes I need to be. But I think where I did well was to bring in, for example, who could I name? Well, Thomas, I took from JLL. He came with me to King Sturge. I recruited Michal, who I remember to this day, and I always remind him of it. Sent me the best CV that I've ever seen. Right. It wasn't done in a normal CV layout. It was like a PowerPoint presentation about himself, very, very Michal, you know, saying. But it caught my attention, right? Yeah, and that was the point. So there was a bit of marketing element to it, and he came in, and the funny story there is that shortly after he joined, he said, "I've been offered a job working for a bank." Which is what I thought I wanted to do. So I'm sorry, but I'm leaving. And I said, "You're not leaving. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll move you to London for a couple of years to train as a chartered surveyor. You're not going to get that opportunity at London." So he came to work for me for a while, then went to London, trained for chartered surveyor, then came back. Yeah. And by the time he came back, I'd grown the company to whatever it was then, 30, 40 people. Yeah. And then he joined Jarek Vanuk, who's gone on and done...
Another one? Yeah.
Done some good things. I brought in Tatiana Spencer to run the retail. Yeah. Mark Freeman came in to run the valuation side. Lots of good people.
Yeah, no, great.
And they as individuals sort of embrace my style of management. So Thomas would say this. He and I think he's kind of taken that on, and probably so is Michal in a way. Yeah. They're all sort of slightly different, you know, and they've had their challenges and moments when they've maybe, you know, not done what they wanted to do, but that's all part of the learning process. But fundamentally under it, I believe that they've got a they've got a. If you look at Mihal's team now, like really great team spirit, they love working for him. I'd like to think that a little bit of my approach rubbed off on Mihal, he's created that great atmosphere with his team, and I think Thomas had great rapport with his guys at Savills. He's moving on now.
I remember that time. There was you and Ben Bannatyne when Ben was at JLL, and there was one thing that both of you guys did extremely well, and I don't know whether this was consciously or unconsciously, but you built an incredible loyalty within the team to you. And and I remember as a head of, well, I wasn't approaching your people at the time, but just the sense of loyalty and the commitment that those people had to you, and saying, well, and they were almost kind of like, I can't consider another opportunity because I'll let Jason down. But there were a crop of guys who came from the UK to Poland to experience, working life in Poland, and I'd met many of these guys, Ben Havery and these
King
guys.
Sturge, what I did is that, I said to the guys in London, I said, there's a longer term vision and a longer term plan here, right? You've got to balance making money and focusing on, frankly, forget the training, get on and do a deal and make us some money. Because if you don't make the money, then the partnership comes down and goes, what's going on in Poland or what's going on in Czech Republic or whatever it was. But at the same time, there needs to be a thread. Like, what's the vision here? We want to create a professional outfit. We want to be recognized by clients as having good professional people. Real estate is a people business, and even with the onset of artificial intelligence and propcos and all the rest of it, it is still a people's business at some point, and people sell people, and people sell companies and win pitches. So with that in mind, I sat down with the guys in London and said, I think we should train certain individuals who we think are up for the task as chartered surveyors. And there was a course, a kind of online course in the UK run by the College of Estate Management, which is affiliated to Reading University, I think. Well, it's in Reading. I don't know if it's affiliated to Reading University, but and by doing that course, you then can fast track doing your APC to qualify as a chartered surveyor, right? And it's hard work. I think you have to study for a couple of years. You have to do a lot of homework at home, and you have to write your essays and all the rest of it. So you're looking for the right individual for that. I think people appreciated that training, and that partly helps with keeping people sort of wanting to stay in the company because they saw a longer term future and a training and a building of knowledge, and all those things were important.
Okay, so I almost forgot we were recording a podcast. I thought we were having one of our walks in the forest and having a chat. So I need to move along with some of these questions because I have a load of stuff here, but I'm not going to get through it all. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you as well, because we talked about you moving back to the UK, you working in Poland, but now at Chancerygate as well, you're developing in Spain and Portugal as well, and so just kind of, I'm very curious to know how that what that process is like for you. Again, another new market for you, another new business culture for you to kind of to learn. And so how's that been for you?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been amazing. Chancerygate is, I think it's fair to say, I think I'm not overstepping the line by saying they are the leading multi-let industrial developer have been in the UK, and it's absolutely right that the business is now pushing out into Europe. It's an absolute fantastic company in terms of its knowledge and professionalism, because it's been developing this product, which in essence is, just to explain what it is that we do. in a nutshell, we acquire sites that are in the region of 1 to 5 hectares in urban locations. So we're not a logistics big box developer. We don't tend to buy sites, large greenfield sites on motorway junctions outside cities. We tend to buy within, rule of thumb, let's say 30 kilometres from the centre of a city. Obviously in the UK it's a bit of an urban sprawl, so it's just about being close to larger conurbations. And then we often acquire irregular shaped sites, and that's one of our USPs, because a big box developer finds it easier if the shape of the site is already a rectangle, because then they can put a rectangle in there. But if you look at some of our sites, they're very weird shapes. So all that understanding and learning about how urban occupiers think is around me on a daily basis. And the company said to me, okay, we want to go and develop in. Initially, they said to me, look, go and spend some time in Europe and come back and say, where do you think we should start? And fast track, I sort of focused my attention on Spain and Portugal. And now I'm looking in France.
Yeah. So
initially it was Spain and Portugal,
yeah.
and more specifically Lisbon, Madrid and Barcelona and Valencia.
So they didn't have experience with those cities, those markets prior to that. So it's not as if you were just you were walking in there and you were said to the local guy, give me the download, and so you had to essentially kind of create this yourself.
Yeah, and there was a hell of a lot to learn, and a hell of a lot to get my head around, and a hell of a lot to do. And it's a challenge, and it's been a challenge. And I in the same way of sort of building a agency in Poland, I sort of quite like the challenge. I embrace it. That's what feeds my energy. Yeah. Is sort of trying to figure out how to do it. But on the other hand, right? I mean, I was doing this with Arrow and Cerberus in Poland. On the other hand, the principles are pretty similar. Agents all behave the same all over whichever country you go to. And what I mean by that is you get sent a site and you're like, okay, but guys, can you tell me what's the planning condition on this? What's the site coverage? They don't send it with like already having prepared their kind of background on the site. Some of them do, don't get me wrong, but I'm kind of kidding, but sometimes some of the things that make you a little bit kind of you could make my life easier, guys. It's the same in every country. And then go to ground in October, something like that, September, October. So that's very exciting. Yeah. And we recruited a country manager, Sebastião. He's now with us. He's a great guy. He's ex-Cushman's investment guy, and very, 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 very smart, capable guy. And we just put an offer in on another site this week, and I hope that we'll secure that under offer, and we're looking at a third one perhaps that we might do. So we hope to do 2 more this year. The planning process is not that dissimilar to Poland. Basically, there's a master plan. You've got to look at the master plan and check that you're planning to build within the parameters of the master plan. If you are, then go to building permit. I think building permit in Portugal takes a bit longer than Poland, but the same sort of idea. Yeah. Depends which district, depends which municipality. It's all the same thing, right? It's all about having good relations with the local town planners. And we work with the project managers. We in the future we might have our own project manager, maybe, but we don't seem to need that at the moment. We have a great firm, Artelia, advising us. With a great firm of architects. All those things. We just had to pull them all together to work as a team. And then in Spain, we employed a guy, Felipe, who's based in Madrid. So I had to set up the company and all the bookkeepers and all the administration, rent an office, employ Felipe. And then a lot of admin then goes with that, because then the company's like, right, you've now spending this money, you've now got a company, you're now bookkeeper.
Yeah, but all the things you've done, as you said, you've done already in Poland. So it's not exactly copy paste, but you're familiar with the process. Listen, we've got to cut this short because we're recording this on the afternoon of the Sika event, which you're in for tonight, and I've got to get home and get my hair and makeup done.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So we could definitely sit here all day and
that's chat. The thing, isn't it? We can chat all afternoon, definitely.
But listen, we're gonna have to call time on this, and we'll catch up later anyway.
Definitely.
for a beer. But listen, thank you so much for coming down, and it's great to see you again.
Thanks for inviting me.
And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people like myself who've missed you over the last couple of years, and hopefully they'll have kind of tuned in and caught up with what you're doing.
Absolutely.
At the moment.
I mean, my focus is now on Western Europe, and I'm embracing that, and it's a great challenge, and I really enjoy it. But I don't want to lose any of my relationships and contacts. So, I hope to be able to come back every maybe couple of years and come to Sika and maybe in between come and just catch up for a few beers, just
Absolutely.
Stay in contact with everyone.
Yeah, well, you're always welcome.
Yeah, perfect.
Brilliant, Jason. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks.